Friday the 13th.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Monday Morning Directing. I'm really excited. Are you excited?
Fuck yeah, I'm excited.
This is gonna be a bit of a different episode from normal. We're gonna be taking a step back from our typical format of us reviewing a specific movie, um, and kind of more talking about a franchise as a whole. And I don't know about you, but this is a franchise that I'm a really big fan of, Friday the 13th.
Yep.
Um, Now, don't get me wrong. I tend to be more of a Nightmare on Elm Street guy. I think you tend to be more of a Friday the 13th guy than I am.
Yes, for sure. I don't know, something about Jason Voorhees, it is a very simple premise that has been repeated, how many times at this point. But I think at certain moments within the timeline of Friday the 13th, you get a lot of like high points as well. Like, someone will try something new and I think that works.
Yeah. And before we get too deep into it, I'm Hobo. This is Rick. In case this is your first episode, I think this should be a little bit more of an approachable episode for most people than some of our previous ones.
Yep.
Because you don't necessarily have to have seen all the Friday the 13th movies. I don't even think I've seen all of them. I've seen most of them for sure. I don't know that I've seen all of them.
I have seen all of them.
Yeah, I think I've seen all of them now that I think about it, but I'm not 100% sure. It was only very recently that I saw the 2009 remake, I think it was.
I enjoyed showing that one to you.
Yeah.
Because I think that movie is perfectly it represents the genre as a whole. The all of them. It's kind of like a culmination of all of
Sure.
them. It doesn't do anything new,
Right.
but it kind of it does update it, and it updates Jason, which I thought was a very good
Hmm.
change.
Sure.
Yeah. So where do you
Um,
want to start off with?
well, first off, I think what we need to start off with is I gotta ask you, um, are you more of a fan of the human killer Jason or like the paranormal zombie Jason?
All right, so that's the thing. So I want to say it's part four. When he comes back and he's undead. I actually
I
might
think it
be
might be
no, the
part
part
five or
six.
part
No,
six.
it's because in four they kill him like he is
Yes.
dead,
Yeah,
and
Corey
then
Feldman killed him.
yeah, and then six, Tommy Jarvis, played by a different actor, but that's also supposed to be Corey Feldman's character,
Right.
accidentally revives him. It feels like when Jason's more human, like the counselors have more of a chance, but they're still
Right.
just like stupid enough to like they just get killed off one by one. Like same
Right.
thing happens.
Right.
The thing about like undead Jason is like you pretty much have like no chance. I think
Sure.
that can make the movie scarier, knowing that these people have no chance,
Mm.
or at least like it's very hard.
Well, if I'm being honest, like a big part of like the zombie Jason type movies, like the later movies, is just like Jason becomes the main character and you almost root for him more than you root for the people because it's the spectacle of what kind of wacky shit is he gonna pull off when he kills this guy. Like obviously the thing that comes to my mind is the sleeping bag scene. Which
Right.
is
Yeah,
which
it's
is
solid kill.
it's so hilarious. It's so over the top. It's so dumb. Um, and I think a lot of the later movies they had to get far more creative with the kills. And that's not to say that there weren't like good kills in the earlier movies. Like the Kevin Bacon arrow scene is the one that stands out for me.
Yep.
Like that's like a super creative, super cool kill. Um, and there's definitely a large part of it where the spectacle of the undead Jason kind of makes it you can do more crazy over the top stuff with him because he's got superpowers basically, you know what I mean?
Pretty much.
And but me personally, I'm actually more of a fan of if I were to make a Friday the 13th movie, I'd want Jason to be uh at least implicitly human, not necessarily the type of thing in like parts 2 and 3 where they kind of where you're sure that he's human. You can have him do things that like you can leave it up to the audience's imagination whether or not he's actually a supernatural being or not, but like still make his capabilities somewhat realistic, right? Like something a person would do.
Yeah, I've always thought that there should be a nice middle ground, honestly, in terms of like, okay, so you got early Jason, very human. Like, for example, at the end of part two, a guy's like 1v1ing Jason, and he's actually holding up,
Right.
you
Right.
know? So there's that. And then the other end of the spectrum is like Freddy versus Jason, or like Jason Goes to Hell, or
Yes.
like the later
Yes.
ones where he's like, he just punches a dude's head off. Like, I was
Yeah.
like, alrighty.
I love Freddy versus Jason.
Now, even though Friday the 13th, the 2009
Mhm.
wasn't like that well received, I think that is like a perfect balance of the two Jasons.
Yeah, I mean they certainly did.
Because
uh
I believe in that movie he's 100% human. I don't see any supernatural elements with him.
Sure.
Um, they kind of do a nice thing where they show that Jason has like an underground system built with
Mhm.
bells like triggered, so that's how he knows where people are. That's
Right.
kind of like a nice thing they added. They gave him this huntsman attire. He's got like a
Right.
nice
And
bow. He kind of like,
and in general, he also tends to be more like stealthy with his kills as opposed to being like this like indestructible monster type character, you know what I mean?
yeah,
And I think they definitely did a good job of balancing the two. I think mostly because they're paying homage to the older movies, you know what I mean? But yeah, I mean I it was enough for me as a fan of slashers and a fan of the franchise to appreciate it, you know what I mean? Because they did enough stuff that was different to it. But I still don't think it was enough that like if you're not a Friday the 13th fan, people would very much enjoy, you know what I mean? Um and don't
yeah,
get me wrong, that's most slasher movies, right? Most slasher movies have a very niche sort of audience for people who are into that type of thing and people who are into horror movies. Um and you know, with very few exceptions, like the original Halloween probably being one of the ones where I think like it sees more mainstream appeal. And so, you know, in that respect, I don't think that anytime you're going to talk about making a new Friday the 13th movie, I don't think you're planning to make it for a general audience. You're planning to make it for the fans. You know what I mean?
yeah. Going back to what you were saying about like Halloween being like for the general audience, I like to think that at least for the most part, the first couple of most of the mainline series is for general audience. Then it shifts into like,
I
all right, horror fans.
I actually disagree because the first like two movies in particular are very low budget, very grindhouse type movies. You know what I mean? Very like you know, lots of exploitation with, you know, fucking nudity and violence. You know what I mean? It's like it's it's not really something that a general audience is going to see. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. That niche audience that's into slasher movies, right, is still a very large audience, right? That's not it's not as niche as the word niche implies, you know what I mean? But it's still not it's still not something that the majority of people are going to go watch.
Well, I think it's not nearly as grindhouse as like compared to like the very first Texas Chainsaw. Like I
Right.
think that movie
Right.
is not going for universal appeal.
Well,
It
but
just happened to like become this whole big thing, right?
that said, I also think that Friday the 13th is far more of an exploitation film than Texas Chainsaw Massacre is.
I couldn't really comment as much. I've only seen the first two Texas Chainsaws, honestly.
Me too. I haven't seen anything past the first two. But I mean, just speaking about the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre versus like the first two Friday the 13th, I mean, you know, the first two Friday the 13th definitely try to turn on the sexy factor way more. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean,
And so and their kills are a lot more over the top. Like the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you don't actually see that much blood and gore and stuff like that. You know what I mean? It's still a very disturbing movie, right? But it's not like this you know, I mean, they don't have Tom Savini on the special effects, you know what I mean?
right, right.
And so um you know, in that respect, again, I think that Friday the 13th has always been viewed with this sort of distaste, you know what I mean? It's not a, you know, it's definitely not a classy movie. It's not even a socially accepted movie, really, even though it's had such a large impact on pop culture. Um, you know, I can't speak on this personally, but I do know from what people have said who grew up during the time period when these movies were being made, that like, you know, it was kind of seen as like, oh, you watch those movies, you know what I mean? You know, very similar to like how a lot of people view me, and I watch, you know, my Godzilla movies, and you know, all the, you know, stuff that the general public doesn't really find as being like, I mean, it's not classy entertainment, you know what I mean? It's very dumbed down uh spectacle entertainment, you know what I mean? Um like in my mind, it's all in the same category. So I think that any Friday the 13th movie, you gotta make it for the fans, you know what I mean? It's not gonna see super wide mainstream appeal. No horror movie is, honestly. There's very few horror movies that I can think of where they really saw massive commercial success with like a general audience.
Which I would say probably Halloween. Yeah, like
Sure.
you mentioned originally, Halloween would probably be the most general, I
I
guess.
Of the slasher movies, yeah.
Of slasher, yeah, I'm trying to think of
There
any
are other
modern
horror movies that I
slashers.
think have probably seen more mainstream appeal. Like well, probably not Night of the Living Dead, but you know, zombie movies and zombie TV shows have definitely broken into the mainstream. Um but yeah, out of the slashers, I think the first Halloween probably might have been the best one. I can't say for certain because I'm not like a movie historian by any means. Um, but you know, so in that respect, yeah, I think that I personally like the '09 remake, but I don't think that um it's for anyone other than the fans. You know what I mean? It pays a lot of homage to the older movies as well, which is like, you know, these sneaky nudges, and um yeah, so I'm much more of a fan of the realistic Jason if I were to make a new movie.
I completely agree that realistic Jason is good, but
Okay,
definitely not realistic Jason from like the early Fridays. Like I
agreed.
definitely gear him much towards the 2009. I think that was just the right way to go.
Right.
But you can tell in the 2009 one, like he has like intelligence. Like he's like planning stuff out. Like he hears a bell. He's like, all right, someone's over there. Someone's over there. Like
Right.
he sets up traps and stuff, which I
Right.
think is also neat. He's not, yeah.
Yeah. He's definitely far more intelligent in that movie than he appears in the because in I forget which one it was, but one of the earlier movies, you know, his mask gets taken off and he kind of looks like Sloth from the Goonies. I don't know. And so in that respect, um I think that if you're going with the paranormal Jason, right? Because don't get me wrong, I still like the paranormal Jason, even though I would probably go with a realistic one. I think if you do a Friday the 13th movie where Jason is, you know, essentially this supernatural monster, um, he's got to be somewhat sympathetic in that, um, he's got to be like, you know, the spirit or like the monster zombie, whatever it is, of this kid who got killed because of a bunch of jackass teenagers, who is now taking revenge on jackass teenagers, right?
Yeah, I've always thought about like so obviously like Jason his origin, right? Most
Mhm.
people know this, but I'll just say it for the sake of saying it again.
Mhm.
Um he gets bullied by all of these guys, goes out swimming, counselors aren't watching, drowns, right? And then the entire premise is that it's his mom in the first one going after. How would Jason Voorhees, if he saw like two people bullying another person, how would he react to that? Is it just
Mm,
like let me go up, let me kill all of them?
right.
I like to think that it is one of the most defining things that shaped his entire life, right? Him drowning in the thing.
Right, right. Or I guess in this case is unlife, but yes.
Yes, his unlife. So I've always kind of thought about that. It's like I do always I do want to have a sympathetic Jason
Right, I agree.
that at least you know like the bounds of like what he
Mhm.
would do and would do. Like
Yep.
I don't know, like if Jason Voorhees stumbles upon like a 4-year old, is he gonna like just like slap the shit out of the 4-year old? Like
Right. And you know, in that respect, I think again, because for most people Jason is the main character. He's who you're coming to see.
yeah,
Um and you know, I mean, you could almost make it like I don't know if you've ever seen the Toxic Avenger.
I have not. I heard they're making a new one with Peter Dinklage and
I
Elijah
did
Wood.
not know that, but
Yes.
very good. But the Toxic Avenger is kind of like that, where um he's this nerd, he gets bullied, he falls into toxic waste, and then he goes and he kills all of his bullies, right?
Hmm.
But he's a superhero kind of, even though he's like really violent. You know what I mean? Like
Is it kind of like Kick-Ass, where they're like
no.
they're like superheroes, but they
Okay,
like
so
do
so so
horrible
to
shit?
explain, it's Trauma, which is the same studio that did Poultrygeist.
Oh
And so it's that
no.
level of like, you know what I'm saying? I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not as extreme as Poultrygeist, but it's that style of gore.
I did it. Is it a much better movie than Poultrygeist? Like, is it like an actual movie that's not weird?
I like both of them, honestly, but yeah,
Why do you like Poultrygeist?
well, it's so over the top that it's funny. You know what I mean? Like I find humor in it. Um, and so we need to get Dane on this podcast. Because he'll talk to you for hours about Poultrygeist. Um,
I don't
but
want to think about that movie anymore.
but I enjoy Poultrygeist, because it's so over the top and crazy that like, and it's so shocking that you can't help but laugh. You know what I mean? Um, Toxic Avenger is similar, but it's toned way down. It's not as extreme as Poultrygeist. And but it's uh, I think Jason should be somewhat similar to Toxic Avenger in that he's doing he's doing something that is bad, right? Something that he shouldn't do and that is like morally frowned upon. However, you sympathize with the idea, right? And even if it's something like, the thing where like he leaves the one girl alive because she hasn't done anything, because obviously that's the slasher trope, that it's always the one good girl left alive who isn't doing anything wrong, that is left alone at the end, right? um you could make it like that, but like Jason like doesn't chase after her, like he intentionally spares her because she's not a jackass, right? um and so I mean, I don't know, I think that having Jason being like this almost anti-hero, I think that would be kind of cool. But you and I have both agreed that we're not really interested in a paranormal Jason. We want to do a somewhat realistic one, or a somewhat human one.
Yeah, a somewhat human one, and I think it shouldn't be. I don't think he should kill for the sake of killing. Maybe the teenagers, right, have done some. Oh, perfect. He's got his weird little shack thing, right?
In which movie?
It's one of them. It's also in the 2009. Like he has a weird hut with his mom's decapitated head.
Oh, right, I do
It's
remember.
also in some of the other ones,
Right,
right? Maybe,
right.
maybe
One of
he
the
just,
earlier one.
yeah, maybe like teenagers come, they vandalize the shit out of the place, and he's just like, fuck these guys, right?
Right.
And he goes on a spree. I do think, however, the problem with him being like, all right, you're a good guy, you can leave, it kind of like takes some of the tension out,
Right.
right?
No, for sure.
Because if you're seeing it just from Jason's point of view, then there's like no tension. He's just going to
True.
be like slashing all these people.
Yeah, you're right.
It's got to be like someone has wronged Jason, right? And he's coming after all of them, right?
Right.
And he's going after it. I've always thought, in my version, I think this is maybe done only like once or twice, is that the camp is already open. I don't want to do the whole thing where it's just teenagers and it's like 2 weeks before camp or whatever, right?
Hmm.
Because they do that every movie. I'm like, all right, maybe give it like a new, fresher dynamic if like the kids are also there, right?
Well, that's kind of tough for me because that kind of takes away some of the horror aspect, in that part of the thing that makes it scary is that they're off in the woods all alone, so far away from like society that they can't reach out to anyone, they can't run away. You know what I mean? They're stuck. Um and so I mean, if you have like the camps already open and there's kids and there's all this other stuff, I don't know. Don't get me wrong. I think that there's something there, but I think that it still kind of falls into what you were saying earlier, where it's like
Yeah, yeah. Now that I think about it, you do lose a bit of tension if there's like 40 people.
yeah. And so in that respect, I think that that's necessary, even though I agree with you that it's a bit overdone. Um, but I think that the premise still kind of works as long as you change up like okay, so one of the things that I have as like sort of a problem with the first movie is that like Mrs. Voorhees only gets introduced in like the last like 30 minutes or whatever it is, like at the very end of the movie.
I thought I forget which character it is. Doesn't like aren't they like around a campfire and like Kevin Bacon is like explaining this story and then brings up Mrs. Voorhees?
I think that's only in the second one.
I don't remember.
If I remember correctly, that they first have the campfire scene in the second one. I could be wrong. I'm probably wrong, but I know that Mrs. Voorhees only really shows up at the very end of the movie. If you kind of had like this complete remake of the first one, um, I would definitely have
Oh,
Mrs. Voorhees kind of be introduced to them really early on and not let them know that she's Mrs. Voorhees. She's just like this nice woman who's kind of around. You know what I mean?
that's kind of like hard to do. Like, okay, so I think the greatness of the very first Friday the 13th is that you think it is Jason Voorhees coming back for revenge after drowning, and then no, it's just his mom who can't
Right.
get over his death, right?
Right.
Which I think is a great twist. Now, I mean, I think your angle could work if it's the problem is Pamela Voorhees is like an older woman, so like how many like people
Well,
are
you
gonna
don't.
spot it out immediately that that's Pamela Voorhees unless you have a bunch of like
Well, you don't
60
have to
plus.
make her an older woman though. You could, you know what I mean? Because you could make her in like her, I don't know. Well, because if Jason is like 10, you could make her in like her like mid to early 30s. You know what I mean? Where she's still older than the counselors, but because most of the teenagers are going to be played by 20 to 30-year-olds anyway, it's not even going to really look like that. You get what I'm saying? And so, and maybe I mean, you don't have to make her white. You know what I mean? Like make it so that upon first viewing, you don't immediately go to this is Mrs. Voorhees. You know what I mean? And or even it could be like a Jason's father. You know what I mean? To kind of like really throw it off the scent. You know what I mean? Um,
Yeah.
like like it doesn't have to be that same depiction of Mrs. Voorhees, right? But still make it that same. It's the same character. Another idea that I had that I think could be interesting, but I don't think it would necessarily work is um people are getting killed, right? And then like about halfway into the movie, it's revealed that it's Mrs. Voorhees, right? Um and then they kill Mrs. Voorhees, right? And then you think it's all over, but then people are still dying and you're like, whoa, what's happening? And then it's actually Jason has come back now after Mrs. Voorhees dies.
So it's kind of like a weird combination of part one and part two.
Yeah. Um mashed up into one movie. And so it's kind of I don't know. I don't know how much it would work because that would have to be a pretty long movie. I don't know how you're going to fit all of that into an hour and a half. But I think that could still be like an interesting kind of like I mean it's the same thing that happens in a lot of movies where you think that the slasher villain is dead, you think, you know what I mean, and then
Yeah.
they're not. But in this case the first villain really is dead, but now Jason's back, you know what I mean, and I think Friday the 13th is an established enough franchise that people would immediately understand what's going on without you having to explain it to them, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the lore is well known enough, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I mean that's an option as well. um the other idea that I had, which is kind of similar, is that the killer is neither Jason nor Mrs. Voorhees. It's just like some random person who is using the Jason like urban legend, if you will.
Wait, no, they've already done that. That's part five.
Yeah, in part 5. But make it one of the teenagers. Make it one of the people who is at the camp, right?
So
As opposed,
you want to make it like a whodunit kind of movie is what I'm kind of gauging.
it's like a whodunit, except they don't think it's one of them. You know what I mean?
Ah, okay.
Like you get what I'm saying? Like it's implied that it's Jason, right? But then the thing that it brings to mind personally is I don't know if you remember a couple years ago there was that the Slender Man murder where these like
Yeah, no. They actually she lived.
oh
They didn't
yeah
kill
she
that
lived, that's
girl.
right. No,
They
yeah, but
stabbed her like 20 times and she
yeah
lived. I was like,
yeah yeah
Jesus.
yeah kind of like that where it's like someone who is, maybe it could be like um one of the teenagers who is like being who sees parallels between himself and like the Jason story, and then it's like I'm gonna get revenge in the name of Jason and all this, like you know what I mean.
Yeah, but how does that work? Like Jason's like a almost 7 foot tall, like buff dude. How does that work?
You don't have to show necessarily that you don't have to show Jason in any
Oh, do we just do
shot.
like a bunch of like POV shots like
Yeah,
they
you
do
could.
in the first one? Yeah,
Well, you could
okay.
do a bunch of POV shots, and you could also do like you see like his foot or like you see his mask for a brief second, but you don't see like his full massive 7 foot tall figure. You know what I mean? Um, and maybe this person like puts on like the same sort of garb, like the tattered black jumpsuit stuff and the hockey mask and all that, right? And is like killing people, but you don't really see them clearly, right? Um, and so I that's another option that you could go down. Um, Again, just to kind of differentiate it, because I think that the slow lumbering Jason is kind of done to death, and I think that especially if you make a remake like that, don't get me wrong, I think that there's still going to be some fans who are upset that Jason's not in it, because again he's basically the main character, but um he the I don't know how to put this, but like I think that there needs to be something new because we've seen that movie already multiple times. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Uh,
If you're not gonna make it that much better than the originals, because the originals are already solid. You know what I mean? Fans are already gonna like those. You can't do it again.
See, I think uh throughout all of these movies, there's been like one factor that's always fallen short, and that's just like the personalities of the camp counselors. Like they're the most annoying people to watch, right?
Well, I think that you're correct, but at the same time, they have to be
Yeah, it's
annoying because you want to see him die.
yeah. See, that's the thing. I kind of want to do it like kind of like going back is that we're actually rooting for some of these characters to make it through the movie. I want to go
Mm,
in that direction.
mm.
And then obviously because it's me, I need to make this a black comedy, dark comedy,
Right, right,
whatever.
right, right, right.
Right. And I think it could be really funny if for example, like some of these camp counselors just
I'm
start
really
accident.
sorry, but when you said black comedy, the first thing that came to my mind is like, you're gonna want Tyler Perry in this? Like what?
Yeah. I want Tyler Perry. He's playing all the roles, right? Um, yeah,
Tyler Perry as Jason Voorhees.
that's a great. That's a fantastic idea.
Yeah, that's sorry, but go ahead.
Right. So I want to make it like a dark comedy, and I want to make it uh unique in the fact on the way the counselors decide to react, right? Because I want these guys that are like uh they notice people are dying, right? So they all group together and they all start like laying traps or whatnot. But I think it'd be really funny if they accidentally start killing each other.
Almost like a zombie survival movie where they start turning on each other.
Sure, kind of, but it is done in a much more like comedic effect.
Oh,
Li-
I
li-
see. Right.
an idea I've always had, right, is these guys they've spent a couple hours, they set up traps, right, and then let's say far off there's a subplot, Jason is chasing someone else, right, And finally, that girl or whoever he's chasing runs back to camp. And they're like, hey, this character's alive. And they're all like, yay, you're alive. And they're like, wait a minute. And then she's walking straight into the trap.
Yeah, she just steps into the bear trap, and then
Yeah,
that's
just
when
fucking
Jason.
like he gets
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
caught, like is like something like that. And I think that'd be like play it like that.
That'd actually be hilarious. That would be great.
Yeah. I was thinking that's direction. But you can't make Jason himself funny.
Sure.
That would
Right.
just ruin anything, right? You got to
In
keep him.
in that respect, Jason is the straight man of the comedy scenario.
Yes, he can't ever break
Right.
and start doing dumb gags because
Right.
then it's like the tension is completely gone.
Right.
Right.
No, I actually think that that's a great idea. And you know, because that's actually something that I wanted to talk about. Is that like, again, my idea was like, you see it a little bit in the '09 remake, and don't get me wrong, you also sort of see it at times in some of the other movies, but like, I'd really want to see like how, you know, these people turn on each other. You know what I mean? Like how often they're like willing to like let someone else die just so that they can run for a little bit longer. You know what I mean? And you know, because again, like if it's a human Jason, right? I think we've talked about this before, where like if you have like just a group of like, you know, 10 people who like just grab a bunch of like baseball bats or something, they can beat down Jason. You know what I
Yep.
mean?
I,
But
I
it's because they split up, it's because they mistrust each other, all of this other stuff that they're getting killed one by one, when really, you know, it would be very easy for them to all band together and then just like kick the shit out of him. You know what I mean?
exactly.
And so, you know, in that respect, that was where my mind went to, is almost like a Night of the Living Dead, where like, you know, if they stick together, they can survive, right? But it's because of the natural mistrust and disdain and prejudices that people have towards one another that they begin to die off, right? And you know, maybe you could make it like, you know, the last three people who survive, kind of like in the '09 one, because like there's is it the two or the three people who survive at the very end?
It's only the brother and sister. That the
Only
girl
the
gets
brother and the
shit.
sister?
She gets stabbed through the chest at the very end.
Right,
She
right,
almost
right.
makes it.
But you know, I mean, but make it like, you know, it only takes three people to beat Jason to death, right? But it takes those three people to completely trust each other and work together.
Yeah, I think it's great if like maybe for the first half they don't even know it's Jason. They just know like people are getting murdered. So
Right.
and then maybe they start pointing fingers, right?
Well,
And that
but the
turns into a
audience
whole
would,
thing.
but again, the audience would probably know it's Jason, right?
Well, obviously, I mean, they
So
would know it's Jason, but you know, play it for comedy, right? That
oh,
these
okay.
people are stupid, like they're
Well, I would say you could even combine it with, you know, my idea that it's one of the counselors that's doing the killing, right? Where they eventually they figure out that it's probably one of the counselors doing the killing, and they all mistrust each other, and that's why, you know. So obviously, a big part of the appeal of the Friday the 13th movies is the way that Jason kills these counselors, right? I mean, you know, I mean, I would be lying to you if I told you that like I didn't look forward to every single kill and to see like what new stuff they can come up with, right? Um
right.
and I don't know. That's tough for me because I don't have any super creative ideas for kills, you know what I mean?
Yeah. One segment I had um
Mhm.
is it's specifically a guy with glasses and then it can be someone else, right?
Okay.
They're running through and there's all
Specifically a guy with glasses.
yes, this is why
Okay.
it works. I'll explain.
Okay.
So he runs through kind of like this shed thing, right?
Okay.
And Jason knows he's there, so he's kind of like swinging his machete through the shed and he's like missing him barely, right?
Mm.
One of the ideas I had is that it's heading straight for his head, right? But he does the hand clap thing on the machete, so he stops it,
Uh-huh.
right? But Jason keeps on pushing forward a bit, just enough, and then yeah, it slowly starts like pressing against his forehead. And I
And
imagine that his glasses get like chopped in half in the process,
right.
because I think that would be funny. And then I mean, it's an either or if he dies there or he manages to
Right.
escape. But I always thought that was kind of a neat thing.
That would be cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing I had an idea for is actually just the counselors just killing each other, whether it be accident or their own like conceited personalities, right?
Yes, you talked about that earlier.
Yeah, we talked about like I think that could bring a whole fresh angle is that it just becomes like a 1v or like a faction v faction and Jason Voorhees is now here, right? Type situation.
Hmm.
The great equalizer, Jason Voorhees.
So when you say that, like, is one side trying to get the other killed by Jason? Like, are they?
No, I like to think it's there's a
They're
bunch
just different groups. Like they're different groups that are off like surviving separately.
I think that it's like there's like a foundation of mistrust that happens at the beginning, right? You know, some
Okay.
characters don't trust each other and all that shit. And then maybe some of these characters, right? They don't even know that Jason Voorhees is real. They think it's just a story, and then it's someone in the group is murdering people, right? They're like,
Mhm.
no way this guy can be undead. That's not possible.
Right.
And that's the foundation for like distrust and why it's like okay maybe one group is like okay we got to stop these guys because we think they're the killers and this guy's like we know it's Jason and they won't believe us type deal.
I see.
Yeah, and I think that could lead to a lot of funny moments honestly. I think death by stupidity in the movie in any movie is one of the funniest ways. Like it always catches me. I
Mhm.
always get caught off guard and it's so funny.
Well, again, I think that's one of the things though that a lot of people dislike about the slasher genre in general is the how stupid the characters are. You know what I mean? Like they don't.
we're
Uh,
not we're not playing them as like I don't want them to be like stupid in the same sense they are in the movies where they're like drunk and horny and that's what leads to their death, you know what I'm saying? Like they're stupid in the aspect um of trusting one another.
mhm,
And the entire concept that like you said earlier is that if these guys like had uh if these guys like had half a brain, they would stick together and they would win.
sure.
But it's their own personalities that causes this to happen. Like they're not doing it like again like in any of the other ones it's like oh I want to get laid type deal and then they
Mhm,
get stabbed. It's like
mhm,
it, and I think that could just lead to a lot of hilarious situations. But the only problem I have with that with my own idea is that people are going to be like okay well I want Jason to start killing people, so there's got to be a diverse enough cast of characters. So for example I'm the director, so then I can have this plot about these two groups fighting but Jason is still killing people and that crowd is still satisfied of like the
That's still a lot of people though
that
that you're
that
gonna
that
have
is
to.
that is a lot of people. That's why I'm thinking there's like I don't know how many characters I want in this.
Because that would be a pretty big cast if they're killing each other accidentally plus Jason's also killing people. Um,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I think that I would probably leave it to like one or two accidental deaths, and then like the vast majority are Jason.
No, so this is what it should be, right? The opening of the movie's got to start off with a kill. That's just like
Oh yeah, of
golden
course.
rule, right?
Yeah.
So after that, camp counselors arrive, you know, all that stuff. Then like maybe one or two of them gets murdered by Jason, right?
Okay.
The distrust is founded because they think, you know, maybe it's someone here. And then there's that whole like fighting between the two groups that happens, results in accidental deaths, whatever. And then maybe halfway through that fighting, then Jason shows up and they're like, oh shit, these guys were right. It was Jason. And then Jason just starts like, you know, going around, you know, wasting people.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, in some ways though, I feel like
It would
this would be better served if it wasn't a Friday the 13th movie. Like this idea. Because then you don't have the fan attachment to like wanting to see Jason all the time and wanting to see Jason kill people. You know what I mean? Um, like
yeah, but even I want to see Jason kill people. That's why I think it is possible for this idea to pull off. Like I also think it would be a comedic moment with Jason. He's still the straight man. Not
obviously,
he's
right?
right, is that he gets to the place and there's already like 2 dead bodies and he did not
Oh, and
kill
he's
them.
and he just
And
kind of like
he's
looks
just
left to right.
yeah, he just like walks over and is just like just like looking at the bodies and he's like and then he just passes on forward, right? I think
Yeah,
that'd
yeah.
be like a
Yeah, like give him a brief pause, like what the fuck?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
no, well actually, and again, I don't know, in that respect, you would almost want Jason to, well, I would say you would almost want Jason to be supernatural because, you know, it would imply that he's killed a lot of people, but again, I think that the franchise is so established that you could have still the human Jason and people already kind of attach the 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 notion that Jason has killed like hundreds already. You know
Yeah,
what I
yeah.
mean?
Actually, in the 2009 one, when what's his face, main character's sister is in the underground tunnels,
Yep.
you can see like a wheelchair, I think, for a brief second, which is a total callback to part 2. Remember the guy that
Oh,
gets axed in the face with the wheelchair and falls all the way down
yeah.
the stairs? There's a bunch of weird shit like that in there.
I didn't see that. I didn't
Yeah,
notice that.
there's a bunch of weird things from all of the movies. Kind of like he doesn't just throw them all away; he just kind of
Right.
has them there.
You're right, like, you know, like trophies.
Yeah.
In that respect, very much like real serial killers, or also, you know, the Predator from Alien versus Predator.
Yes.
Which I mean, I don't know if we want to go down this tangent, but I would like to see more Freddy versus Jason type movies, potentially still with Freddy and Jason.
Uh, um. Why?
Okay, so I think that there is a lot of potential for having.
It no longer becomes a horror movie though.
Oh,
When
of
you do
course, yeah, yeah.
I'm like, but that's the thing. Like, it's no longer scary. It becomes an action movie. Another thing, Robert England is retired, so or at
Right, of
least
course.
retired from Freddy, so he's not going to
Right.
be doing that.
But that's you know, they did the Friday the 13th remake that I actually haven't seen, but that one didn't have Robert Englund. You know what I mean? And so you know, it's possible to do it without Robert Englund is my point.
Right. That was also very slight tangent to your tangent here.
Yeah.
In that movie, do they hint that uh that Freddy didn't actually kill those kids? They kind of do like a weird hint that it's like the parents' impulsive nature ends with him dying. Like he actually was innocent. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, I vaguely remember. I can't say for sure because it's been a while since I've actually seen it. I need to
Yeah,
go back
yeah.
and watch it. But yeah, I don't know. I think that I don't know. You could I could also potentially see because the obviously the movie starts with it's almost like Freddy and Jason are teaming up. I mean, it's really more that Jason's being manipulated by Freddy, right? Um,
Right.
but then as soon as uh Jason he starts getting in the way of Freddy's kills, that's when they start to have a problem, right?
That's
Um,
that's exactly Freddy versus Jason though.
that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that that's what happened in Freddy versus
Oh
Jason.
yeah.
But my thought is that there is potentially a I guess horror action comedy thing there where it's maybe not even necessarily Freddy and Jason. Maybe it actually has nothing to do with Friday the 13th, but you have two killers, right? Well, in this case, we'll just say Freddy and Jason. And they are trying to work together, but they're getting in each other's ways, and it's almost like a comedic duo, like an Abbott and Costello type deal, right?
Yeah.
Where you know you've got Freddy's like doing all of this like mouthing off. He's like, you know, he's trying to torment this kid, and then Jason just like runs up with an axe and just bashes him in the head, right? And then Freddy just has that moment where he's like, "What the hell, dude? What? Like I was in the middle of the thing," and then you know, again, kind of playing off of the idea that like Jason is a straight man, Freddy would kind of be the more comedic of the two, right?
You might be pleased to know that at one point there were plans on making Freddy versus Jason versus Ash Williams. That was a planned
Oh, I
movie
do
at
remember
one
you
point.
telling me about this. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like, yeah,
which works because I don't know if Bruce Campbell would have been attached to the project, but
yeah, I don't know.
he can totally bring that dark comedy vibe. Like he does
For
it perfectly
sure.
in Evil Dead.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, and so like, I don't know. I think that if we're going down the route of like not pure horror, right? Like the idea of making it a dark comedy, you could definitely like there's a lot of potential, I think. Again, because the character is so well known that you don't need to explain anything. You know what I mean?
Right. It could work as a very funny like a buddy cop thing.
Yeah,
Maybe perhaps they both
almost.
gotta do this thing and then like they hate each other at the end. They learn to.
Well,
I
I don't
don't
know.
know if they will learn anything at the end, but
Yeah, no, for me it would be more like they don't even necessarily hate each other. They're just like working together, but their styles clash so much that they're, comedic antics ensue. I don't know. I don't know.
I,
That's pretty half baked. That's just,
my idea, right? For if I want to mix an older horror property with comedy, is
Mhm.
Texas Chainsaw, right? But
Yeah.
it's only about the family, and
Yep.
it's shot like
Like a
Modern
sitcom.
Family, or yeah, like Modern Family, where they do
Sure.
the whole interview bits in this segment,
I
right? And
love that.
they're all bickering with each other and all that stuff.
Yeah, I love that. Almost like the show that you and I love very much, What We Do in the Shadows.
Yep,
Um,
pretty much shot in that same style.
yeah, where it's a mockumentary.
Yeah,
And you just have instances where there's like this one poor girl tied up and they're arguing about how they're gonna kill her, you know what I mean?
yeah.
And
Because at the end of the day, the show's about a dysfunctional family who love each other,
right, right. I mean,
but they also eat people.
I did also oh, I cannot remember who did it. Oh, it's Worth the Kids or Worthy Kids. I don't know exactly how to
What
pronounce it.
is that? Let me look
He's
that
a
up.
he's an animator on YouTube, who made this very, very cool animation that I thought was great, where essentially there's this woman working at like a gas station, and then like the girl from the Ring walks in, right? It's the girl from the Ring, and then Freddie and Jason, right? And they're like a family. Um like kind of implying that like Jason and Freddy are like a couple kind of. But like but it's literally just like these the girl from the Ring, she's grabbing like snacks and stuff, and then like Jason doesn't talk, but he uses like sign language to communicate, and so he's like, sorry, I'll pay for everything, just the kids are just gonna grab some stuff and we'll be out of your hair, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then
Okay, continue.
and so like and there's a point where like Freddy's like, I forgot my ID, Jason, can you buy me booze, right? And then I
Yeah,
don't know.
but you completely lose the horror in that. Like, there,
Of
it's not. It
course.
doesn't even become horror action. Like, because my idea is that it still has at least the gore or at least some aspects, but here it's just like
No, but my point is that like it's similar to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre sitcom idea, right? But you just incorporate multiple horror characters. Although now that I think about it, the
the
actually getting the rights for everyone
rights.
would be
Yeah, I'm
really
like
tough.
that's horrible. Yeah.
But I mean, but this is couch directing, so we'll ignore all those problems and we'll be like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, this is
Um,
Monday morning directing.
yeah, I mean, the point is that like we don't care about the actual logistics of making the movie. We're just saying like, oh, they should have done this. You know what I mean? Um, so I mean, I don't know. I think that you could do a similar thing with Friday the 13th and have like a bunch of different. I mean, I guess in that respect, it's kind of similar to the Monsters, right? Which I love. I love the original Monster. I haven't seen the new Monsters movie, but I love the Monsters TV show. It's just it's a sitcom about a family of different monsters.
I am an Adams Family
I'm a
enjoyer.
Monsters guy. I mean, as much as I love the Adams Family, I'm far more of a Monsters guy.
I don't know if you heard, but Wednesday Adams is getting her own Netflix
Yeah,
show.
I saw
I
that.
might check that out. It actually looks decent.
Yeah, I've been meaning to also check out the Monsters movie because it's directed by Rob Zombie.
I
So
heard it's fucking awful.
really, oh well,
Yeah, I mean, like, it's Rob Zombie doing a monster. Like,
I don't know.
Rob's okay. I'd get on a
I
whole
like Rob
tangent.
Zombie.
I think I think he did all right with the Halloween movies that he did.
Yeah, I thought he did pretty okay with the Halloween movies. I mean, they weren't they were unique, and they weren't. I mean, they weren't the best, obviously, right? And we'll get into that more probably in the future. But like you know, the what's it called? I forget the name of it, but it's the Devil's Rejects, House of a Thousand Corpses, those movies. I thought Devil's Rejects in particular was really good. I really liked that movie.
I have not seen. I've only ever seen his.
It's real disturbing. Like it's really like it makes you feel uncomfortable the whole way. But it's also like there's also moments of like really funny comedy just like out of nowhere. Like you know there I don't want to get into it if you haven't seen it, but there's this scene where essentially one of the three is a killer clown, and he breaks into this car and there's a kid still in the car and he's like, "Don't you like clowns? Don't you think we're funny?" And he goes, "No." Well, I'll tell you what, if you don't give me one good reason for why you don't like clowns, the next year I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna kill your whole family. And but he lets the kid go. He doesn't hurt the kid or anything, but he just like freaks him out, and it's hilarious. Is and then like the next scene they're like brutally like torturing a woman, and it's like, geez, you know what I mean? But I don't know. I think Rob Zombie's a pretty decent director. I mean, he's not great, right? But the one thing that you see with all of his projects is that he has a very genuine love for these movies. You know what I mean? And these
Have you seen the Monsters trailer?
I haven't. No.
Okay, that's why. All right.
Oh, okay. Well,
You'll look at it after we're done recording. Go watch it. You'll come back. You'll be like, I get it.
yeah.
It's
Well, I haven't seen anything on it, but I mean, honestly, speaking of the monsters, right? I think that there's a lot of parallels between the Frankenstein monster and Jason Voorhees.
Yeah, of course. He's and especially they bring that out with part 6, right? Like
Yep,
he's
where he gets
literally
struck by the lightning
rod.
yep.
Yeah, and he straight up comes back.
Yep. And again, also like the idea that he could potentially be like this misunderstood misfit who just doesn't understand their own strength. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think there's room for that because obviously like it's not like he's misunderstood in the movies at all. He like
Right.
people understand what his intentions are very
Right.
clearly. Like
yes. But I don't know. I don't have anything else to say. Do you?
well, good news if you are a Friday the 13th fan. So
yes.
obviously, after they released 2009 Friday the 13th, there was a dispute between the studio and the original screenwriters on who had the rights.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, for about a decade, nothing could be done. In fact, that when they released the Friday 13th video game, which is a game that I hold near and dear to me, I love that game so much. It basically killed that game because the devs could no longer had the rights to work on the game, so it was just dead in the water.
Right.
It was settled at least a year or two ago, and last I heard they are developing a new Friday the 13th movie. Hopefully one of the writers is watching this podcast so he can hear our genius ideas. That would be amazing.
Honestly, they could just, pick the two of us up and we'll
we can write it. It's not that hard to write a Friday the 13th movie.
No, it's
we
not
can
that hard.
fucking do.
No. Yeah, like I mean, you heard the ideas we had. I think to say nothing of quality, the ideas that we have displayed here are at least radically different from every other Friday the 13th movie.
Yes. 100%.
And so
people don't want the same thing from Friday the 13th. Nope. Like that is very clear that they want something new.
Yeah, if there's one little soundbite that I want the people making the new Friday the 13th to hear, don't make the same movie again, please. Give me something. I will give way more.
Go the comedic route. Go inner conflict.
Okay, I strongly disagree with the comedic route, but that
comedic.
Said, like,
I said dark comedy.
I would very much rather see a movie who tries to do something new and is only kind of okay, as opposed to like someone who does the same old stuff well. You know what I mean? But anywho, I think that's all we have to say about Friday the 13th. Um, so good news for this podcast, I guess. We are planning to release a new episode every Monday for the rest of October, leading up until Monday, October 31st, which is Halloween. And you know, we've got a bunch of other spooky topics on the docket for us. Hopefully we manage to actually get them out in time, because
Yeah.
we don't have the best track record of that exactly. Um but yeah, I mean, that's our goal. We're trying to be more consistent with it, and we've set ourselves a goal, and hopefully we're going to be able to follow through.
Yep.
So back again, we have another special guest on the podcast very late. We have actually the real Jason Voorhees. Say hi, Jason. Uh, that's okay.
He's a bit
So
shy, maybe.
so Jason, we had this discussion a little bit earlier. Are you a real person, or are you like a supernatural ghost zombie entity?
Okay, maybe I'll ask him something else. Jason, what is your favorite kill? Now that I'm thinking about it, maybe podcast interview was not the right medium for this.
Yeah. I want to go home.